Coming to you from the city of the weird. Exploring topics from the esoteric and unexplored to dimensions unknown. Shining a light of truth on the darkest corners of our reality. Welcome to the Curious Realm. Well, hello, everybody. How are you doing? Chris Jordan here, coming at you from Austin, Texas. We are live tonight, just so you are aware. Next week, we will be in a full pre-recorded fashion. I am on the road in Las Vegas working, so after the show tonight, everything for next week is already edited. It's fantastic. Went through and checked it all out today. We have coverage from the International Association of Near-Death Studies Conference. We were one of the many people fortunate enough to help sponsor that conference, and we were there and got close to 5 hours, 4 hours, 51 minutes, I think the episode totals out to, but almost 5 hours of coverage from not only near-death experiencers, but authors in the realm of near-death experience, researchers in the realm of near-death experience, documentary filmmakers, people who talk about grief counseling, things like that. So if you are interested in the world of near-death experience or near-death studies, next week is a four-plus hour episode that you do not want to miss out on. A lot of people have asked me to chunk these episodes up and think, I'm sorry, folks, I am a one-man machine. It's me. Whenever I'm on the road, my lovely and amazing wife, Amy Jordan, actually gives me the assist, and she is the one throwing the episode to social media here at home, while I use our WebWorks wireless platform, from our friends to go live mobily to our website with the same content. But next week, Amy, my amazing wife, will be here in the studio throwing that 4+ hour episode to you. It was amazing to be there at that conference. We got to meet Robert Bigelow in person, got to meet Colonel John Alexander in person, shake both of their hands, thank them for their numerous decades of work in the fields of research in not only paranormal work, but UFOs, UAPs, and now the Bigelow Institute offering the grants that they just came out with. Just so you know, whenever I shook their hands, he directed me right over to the gentleman that was presenting with him and said, talk with him. He will get somebody from the Bigelow Institute on the air with you to talk about these grants in near-death studies. So they're actively putting out grants out there right now, folks, for $50,000+ each, for research into communication with the other side. Confirmed fact that consciousness exists beyond this stasis that we are in, that we know as reality, that somebody's consciousness continues on. That is not in any religious way, shape, or form. That is not saying someone's in heaven or hell. That is just saying that their consciousness has continued beyond their physical form. So, there was a huge essay contest last year. We got to interview the $500,000 winner of that, Jeffrey Mishlev. Got to see him there. Hey, Jeffrey, hope you're watching. That was great. Didn't get to interview him again, but look forward to doing that soon. He was a really great guy, author of the book PK Man, and one of the folks that was there observing and seeing things back in the days of SRI and remote viewing, stuff like that. So he has been hip deep in that world and literally the only holder of an actual PhD in parapsychology. So he is a psychologist, stuff like that, but has a PhD in parapsychology. And the only one out there that is in existence. Not that many people haven't done PhD work in that field, but he's the only holder of one. So we're looking to get him back on, talk about things. Speaking about talking about things, let's hop on over to our Facebook group. Facebook group of Curious Realm is, of course, where we pull our news of the week every week. This week, there has been some amazing stuff that we have posted in there. There's, of course, our video from tonight. In addition to that, oh, wow. Looky there. Stuff from the Bigelow Institute, everything else. We have had a fantastic time of going out and doing these live events. It's been great. Let me get over to the group, not our page. But out of Science Alert, researchers just wirelessly transmitted power over 98 feet of thin air. That is the first time that power has been transmitted almost 100 feet from a source to a device. And then out of Futurism.com, Panera Bread is replacing humans with AIs at drive-through windows, coming soon. Out of Vice, China accuses the NSA of hacking its military research university. Really, I can't imagine. Out of Vice.com, this one I love, and just a little hot tip. We have a little bit of conversation about this in the second part with our good friend Keith Seland, our upcoming guest in the pre-recorded section tonight, author of Humaniverse. But out of Vice.com, a small device currently on Mars is generating as much as a tree, scientists revealed, as much oxygen as a tree. And that little box is, you can see the size of the hand, like it is not that big. It is the size of your typical file box. And that little device is generating as much oxygen as one tree. So some great updates there on the Aurora investigation from Daniel Allen Jones. And out of The Guardian, is it seaweed or something more sinister? The sewage blighting Britain's beaches. Some crazy stuff going on in Britain right now. Out of the Rolling Stone, these kids are dying inside the overdose crisis sweeping Fort Bragg. That's right, folks. There is a crazy, crazy opioid crisis going on in our military right now. And believe it or not, soldiers have been dying by like the hundreds every year for the last couple years. It's pretty frightening. Go check that out. Once again, News of the Week is brought to you by our Facebook group right there on Facebook, Curious Realm. While you're online checking out our website, curiousrealm.com, make sure to stop on by. I'm going to type it in right here, thepump.org. Thepump.org is the official website of the Pharaoh's Pump Foundation. The Pharaoh's Pump Foundation is run by Stephen Myers. He is the author of the amazing books, The Great Pyramid Prosperity Machine, Why the Great Pyramid Was Built, and Lost Technologies of the Pyramid, How the Great Pyramid Was Built. Now, we frequently, at least 2 or 3 times a year, have Stephen on talking about lost technologies of the Great Pyramid, specifically talking about the concept of the waterlock building system, things like that. But like I told them tonight, I really want to focus on the prosperity machine concept and the idea of why the pyramid was built. Because our second guest tonight, we talk about petroglyphs. And welcome to the show, Stephen, by the way.
Thank you for having me on.
Our second guest tonight, Stephen, we talk about petroglyphs, and we talk about this concept of petroglyphs, of them being, quote, rock art. And it's really a big, big misnomer, you know, because they're not. Rock art is cave paintings, where it's like, here's a picture of a dude shooting a bull. Petroglyphs are specifically carved into rock for sacred meaning. They are much more akin, like I said, especially using the word glyph, to hieroglyphs, where yes, they may be telling a story within a set of characters, something like that. But it's strange that there are a lot of markings that are similar culture to culture across the world with these things. But the reason I'm bringing these two up and why I wanted to pair these two together was because we tend to look at petroglyphs as rock art when they're really something totally different, you know? And we tend to look at the methods of what the Pyramid of Giza was used for and what traditional archaeology and Egyptology tells us it was used for. And really, it was probably something totally different. So, yeah, let's go ahead and start touching on that, Stephen, and really cracking the nut on what the Great Pyramid is and why it was constructed. Now, folks, we aren't going to be getting into, just so you know, Stephen Myers is the most common sense man you will probably hear when it comes to pyramid construction, when it comes to pyramid utilization. And I am not prone to argue with the man because so much of it makes utter common sense when you get down to it. And we have this tendency, Stephen, to discount ancient peoples, to discount the knowledge of people 10, 15,000 years ago, and what we have lost and not even regained. Like, we don't even know how to fully make Roman concrete yet, much less how they built the pyramids fully. So let's go ahead and start getting into what the pyramid actually is, as opposed to a tomb, as we are told.
Well, thank you, Chris, for the very wonderful compliment of saying that what I talk about is common sense. And that certainly means a lot to me. So I appreciate that.
Well, yeah, because I know amongst the communities that we both belong to and both edge on, which are the paranormal communities, the communities of UFO, UAPs, things like that, and just straight up archaeology and science. Like, we both belong to a lot of the same groups, on social media. And I love following your work. And I also love just seeing you straight lay out to people that it does not have to be aliens, man. Right.
Yeah, that's who. Now, that's a whole different subject.
Yes, it is.
It's different than why it was built.
Yes.
So we could touch on that. Just one thing that I say, just to make a long story short, if you say aliens built it, then you're also saying that the ancient people weren't smart enough or good enough to pile these rocks on top of each other. So that's kind of ethnocentric, if you will. And actually, aliens come in a lot of different races. There's the tall grays and the ETs and whatever, and the reptilians. Don't want to leave them out.
They come from across the ocean too, Stephen.
Right. But if you say that an alien race had to build the Great Pyramid instead of the people that lived in the Valley of the Nile, that's kind of racist, if you will. I think. I really do. Because,
I tend to agree.
They couldn't build it. It had to be aliens.
Well, it's the fact
that's not very good.
It is diminutive of thought.
Yes.
And it is definitely the way that I put it on this show and in conversation regularly. It is a distillation mentality, which is dangerous. No matter how you look at it, whether you look at it theosophically, philosophically, theologically, I don't care. When you start distilling things like that it's like when my psychology professor used to tell me that I was anthropomorphizing what the gorillas I was supposed to be studying were doing. I was looking at what they were doing and why they were hitting a stick on the ground and going, oh, well, they must be trying to do this. Dude, you are not a gorilla. You're just supposed to be writing down he hit the stick on the ground 3 times this time of day. And then you watch again. You don't write down why you think he's doing that because you're not a gorilla.
Right.
That is putting what you know onto the situation, and that's not proper science.
No, it's not. But the question of who built it, since we first addressed that,
sure.
That is not really the focus of my research, believe it or not. Because let's say you found out it was a guy named Bob, a leader in ancient times named Bob. Okay, we know who built it. It was Bob. Your very next question is, why would he do such a thing? And that's what we're going to talk about, why they built the Great Pyramid. So I don't really focus on who did it.
Yeah.
So
well, and
it's just the way.
Well, and that's just it. It's one of those. It was probably more than likely a conglomeration of a whole bunch of people that lived in the local area.
I think so. Yes, wise leader.
Yeah.
Intelligent people.
Yep.
Geniuses. Like when we built, let's say, the Grand Coulee Dam.
Yep. Hoover Dam.
They had a leader. They had a workforce. They had, statisticians.
And people heard there were jobs in Kentucky and came out to Nevada.
Yes.
To camp and build the Hoover Dam because that's what they did. Same thing. People came down from Memphis and all kinds of places in Egypt to help build the pyramids.
Right. I've been to the Hoover Dam, and it's one of my favorite dams, but they were paid 50 cents an hour, but they could go buy a home and everything else. They came to build those dams because the workers made excellent money. And it was, a wonderful project that had a very specific aspect of the Hoover Dam, and that is it had a really big return on investment that was bigger than the cost of building it.
Well, and that is really, once again, the same way that the ancient project builders looked at the Great Pyramid, is the fact that this is a Herculean effort. However, the uses behind this for our society and how we can rapidly grow our society are enormous. So let's start talking about the implications of exactly what the Great Pyramid actually is. Because once again, it is not a tomb.
Well, I don't think it is, but they still teach that in college.
Well,
today that it's a tomb. Well, there I am taking a rest there at the coffer inside the Great Pyramid, now resting up from all that hard research.
The one thing I would like to note here on this picture of you, just to narrate this for our folks, and feel free to bring up any picture of the king's chamber in the Great Pyramid, anywhere on the internet. This is not a rigged photo. What you see here are smoothed granite walls, a smoothed granite tomb encasement. There are zero engravings, zero carvings on the wall of the pyramid. Now, if this was an actual tomb, whoever that is, according to Egyptian religious culture, is doomed to all eternity to never leave that room.
Right.
It's definitely not a king, because you would have wanted the king to go on to the afterlife where he came from and go back. Yes. So there would have been literally the spells for him to cross over into the afterlife and have his heart read and either given to an alligator to eat, or it's the weight of a feather and you move on and go down the River Nile to eternity,
Yes, in the Valley of the Kings, where they found the mummies, every surface has writing on it.
Exactly.
But inside the Great Pyramid, there's no writing at all because it's a machine.
Well, and let's start getting into that, because I always like to start here with you, because it's very, very important to note that, what we are told by 90% of archaeology and Egyptology about what is inside that Great Pyramid and the tomb, the quote, tomb chamber, is not a tomb by all archaeological Egyptological standards at all.
It's not. How do long open passageways and doors on pivots protect a mummy and its golden treasure? And you never get a coherent answer from that question.
Yeah. And well, let's start getting into exactly, because you mentioned the fact of it is a machine. So let's start talking about the machinations of the Great Pyramid Prosperity Machine, exactly what kind of machine it is and what it does.
Okay, we'll do that. We think but first, its purpose is to provide prosperity for those who built it. That's why we have hydroelectric dams, the power grid, sewer systems in cities, and all of that is to provide prosperity for those who built it, to improve our lives and the lives of our children. That's why we do all that. But anyway, absolutely. We think the Great Pyramid did all of that and more because it was built to be a massive infrastructure, a machine that pumped water.
Interesting. Please do explain what brings you to that hypothesis.
Well, what brings me to that hypothesis, that interpretation of the direct physical evidence, is the direct physical evidence. There's so much that points to that as far as I'm concerned. The casing stones were cemented together with a bonding agent that is stronger than the stone itself, and those joints are watertight. And the precision stone cutting serves the same purpose as precision in a functioning machine. So you have the cutaway view of the Great Pyramid that you're showing, and water entered the descending passage there on the right-hand side and went down to the subterranean chamber. We think that the design of that chamber utilized the force of implosion that Victor Schauberger researched, who is an Austrian naturalist in the 1930s and 40s. He developed a number of machines that used implosion, and then water moved up through the what they call the escape passage, the escape shaft, but that water moved up through that to the Grand Gallery. And that Grand Gallery acted like a watertight cylinder, even though it's not cylindrical. The upper part of that Grand Gallery was electrolysis occurred, and they separated oxygen and hydrogen from the water. Well, those two gases are quite volatile. When they ignited those gases, it caused ultimately a vacuum, which lifted water, a huge water piston, up the Grand Gallery. So you can see videos on YouTube of people doing that, creating a vacuum using combustion.
Oh, absolutely.
So, it's quite fascinating.
Well,
anyway,
I mean, that singular piston construction through vacuum like that is quite literally how, like, scramjets and things like that work.
Kind of similar, yes, in a way. So it lifted this about 300-ton water piston up, and they were able to release the vacuum, which moved it back down, and it pushed water through the horizontal passage into the Queen's chamber. And the Queen's chamber was about half full of water, the upper half full of air. And when you added additional water into the Queen's chamber, it compressed the air. And there's some valves and other things that are associated. We think there was a check valve at the step in the horizontal passage near the Queen's chamber. We also think there was a passage from the hole in the floor of the Queen's chamber all the way up to the King's chamber. So that's not shown on your illustration, but there is some evidence that indicates that it was there. Both of those floors are concreted over in modern times, so it's difficult to confirm or rule out that passage. But anyway, that allowed water to enter the King's chamber, and it also acted in a similar way as the Queen's chamber. The top half is full of air that act like an air cushion, and you would introduce more water in the King's chamber, compressing the air, which pushed water out the King's chamber vents. So it was kind of like two water pumps in series, and kind of superpowered this water pumping action. So it had two outputs. And then we think water went down through a passage in the casing stones and out to the point of use. So it was an industrial park or a science center. The Giza Plateau was originally, but then there are some graves there now. So it's quite high technology. We have a video series of how it was constructed using water locks that we can watch. And we're also going to add another video series about how all of this water pump stuff worked with computer generated animation showing all the parts that are missing.
Absolutely. Because, once again, it's kind of like if you take a crazy straw and put some liquid in it and pinch the bottom, you'll see it go up and move around through pressure, through the loops and all that kind of stuff,
Yes.
And by controlling that pressure on the outside, and even if you're saying it does not take a whole lot of voltage to electrolyze water, and you can even electrolyze water in a chemical way.
Yes.
Through addition of lime and hydraulic acids, things like that. You can absolutely, all naturally occurring.
That's correct.
You can hydrolyze water and end up with oxygen and hydrogen, and the hydrogen, even the weak amount going, is what, once again, maintains that constant combustion cycle,
Yes,
and
it does cycle through several phases.
Yeah.
And then it pumped water.
Once again, to look at the air shafts, things like that, that's no different than a 4-input carburetor. You can utterly control the airflow with which shaft you're using, a combination of 2 shafts being different lengths, all kinds of stuff. So you could control all kinds of air pressures just with those 4 shaft vents, in addition to the entrance. Once again, a lot of really common sense stuff that you very, very much bring up, when it comes to the construction of the pyramid and the hows and whys.
It's interesting. People say, well, they have all the water they need in the Nile. Why would they need a water pump? That's a good question. Isn't it interesting that the largest water pump in the world is in the valley of the Nile and is pumping water right now? It's the Mubarak pumping station. So people can look that up and read about it. But they built that huge water pump in modern times in ancient Egypt, and we think in modern Egypt. And then we think that they also needed a water pump in ancient times. So they operate differently, certainly, but that would justify such a huge cost to that civilization.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, not even to mention the fact of right now, as we speak, massive drought cycle. And not just here in the U.S., folks. Like the Colorado River, almost dry. Lake Mead down to historic lows. I know 4 more bodies were just found recently.
That's very serious about the water level.
There's towns in Mississippi. There was one that I posted about in our Facebook group, 20 days of fresh water left in reserve for this town. And even right now, I'll bring up on screen from scientific reports at nature.com, worsening drought of Nile Basin under shift in atmospheric circulation. So
yes.
That is from May 2022. That is not that long ago. That drought is still going on. The Nile is still drying up. So you want to know why they need a pump? You know, it's kind of like, well, I live on a river. Okay, do you always want to go to the river to get water? And should you always go to the river, or should you just tap into the aquifer below you?
Right. I live in rural Oregon on the Oregon coast, and there's farms and dairies all around. Every one of the farms has river frontage, and they pump water out of the river. And I always, when I see one of them farmers, I say, why did you spend all that money on your big water pumping system when you got the river right there? And they always look at you like you're an idiot, because the water in the river is worthless for irrigation. Because it's in the river. You need the water up on the land. And to get it up there, you spend the money to pump the water, which provides prosperity. And people now don't understand that. They think food comes from the grocery store or something like that. But ancient Egyptians were geniuses and built this sophisticated water pumping system.
Absolutely. And I am going to just bring up right now, as I chat with you, crops grown on Giza Plateau in ancient times. And we'll see what was actively grown there, because it wasn't like, oh yeah, you know, we got some papyrus and things like that. We got a couple products that we make out of the Giza complex, that kind of stuff. We are looking at things like flax, roots, herbs, everything from cotton, papyrus, barley, grains, staple food crops.
Right there in Giza.
Orchards.
People say
orchards.
People say, well, they had the yearly inundation. The Nile flooded. Yeah, once a year in the desert isn't good enough. So they needed a water pump for year-round irrigation and also industrial purposes.
Yeah.
But in modern times now, they built the High Aswan Dam, which stopped the yearly inundation.
Yes.
So the powers that be understood that this High Aswan Dam they use the electricity to pump water was more efficient, better than the yearly inundation. So in modern times, they understood that, and they also understood it in ancient times.
Yeah. Yeah. And the main thing is they understood it, as we've been getting into quite frequently with guests lately. They understood it to a much greater extent. You've got a couple years on me, but I remember my grandparents had a victory garden. You know, my grandfather grew up farming cotton in Louisiana. He grew up eating on a farm, living on a farm. He did not get barely through high school, you know, right. had a trades job, and was still till the day that he died, had a crop big enough in his backyard that anybody that came over left with a bushel of fresh veggies.
Right.
Like you're leaving with a basket, like here's a bag. I literally cannot keep enough of it.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Take it with me.
My dad, he grew up in the Depression, and when he was a young man, he would take eggs to the store.
Yeah.
You know, and then so he could trade it for other stuff.
That's right. That's right. Go trade it for butter, you know, stuff like that.
Or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. That's why a lot of older people, like if they don't like to go to a store, they say, I won't trade there.
Yeah. Yep.
It's interesting to me.
Well,
but yes, this ancient tech.
Yeah. I'm akinning that just to the fact of they had a connection to directly where they lived and the cycle of things in which they lived. You know,
much more than now.
And not only a grasp of the cycle, like beyond a fisherman where it's like, well, I know it's spring and the grasshoppers are out, so that's what I'm going to put on my line, you know, beyond match the hatch of fishing or hunting to the point of having an intimate knowledge of what's going to happen cyclically, like Farmer's Almanac status 10 years from now.
Oh, they did. They were very in tune to the environment that they lived in. They understood some rather sophisticated aspects of physics, like implosion.
Yep. And
they were brilliant people. There are no ancient peoples that were dumb by any means.
Yeah, yeah.
And the geniuses built this infrastructure, like we build hydroelectric dams or whatever, for a huge return on investment. Yeah. We think that this ancient technology can be redeveloped to help our modern but very troubled world. You can do a lot if you can cheaply pump water up, generate electricity. You can irrigate farmland that's marginal, if you will, that you can't afford to buy an expensive water pump or fuel it with fossil fuels like in the third world. So we want to redevelop that ancient technology to help our modern but very troubled world. And people can find out about what we're doing from our website at thepump.org. They can read our mission statement and see our activities and get involved, do something. We're all alive and taking up air. Get involved in something, maybe this or something else. And they can contact us and see what we're all about.
Well, and the main thing is, the one plus side is that even through going and spreading the word to people, and whenever you have a conversation, hey, bring it up. It's about having the open conversation and being willing to open the conversation.
Yes.
Once again, most of Egyptology, especially when it comes to Egyptology, because that was one of the sciences that was like science became a science, like right as the cusp of us saying like, okay, it's no longer vapors. There's little things that live inside of stuff that make us sick called bacteria. Right at the cusp of that is right as Egyptology started, because there were still people like trading mummy fingers to like powder them up into teas and drink them for health benefits.
There was that going on.
That kind of stuff.
But Egyptology is certainly stagnated into almost a mystery religion.
Yes.
And I have a video on my YouTube page that they can get to from thepump.org.
Yeah.
That the title is Egyptology a Pseudoscience?
Yeah.
And it's gotten a lot of interest.
Well,
they do some very strange things. Do not do demonstrations. So it's interesting. You go to St. Williamsburg, Colonial Williamsburg on the East Coast.
Yep.
Or you go to Fort Clatsop on the West Coast, and you have reenactors that show you how they did everything: gunsmithing, make furniture, make leather, and bookbinding and coopersmiths. And there's no controversy about that. But then you get to Egyptology, and they just declare edicts that you're supposed to believe. They don't demonstrate anything. They've never made a single casing stone ever. They've never moved a 70-ton payload 1 inch. But they declare edicts, and we're supposed to believe what they say. Yeah. So Egyptology is in crisis.
That is
right now
absolute truth. That is one of the things that we bring up regularly on the show, as well as every single time that we have you on, is they have attempted. And this is not to say that it took aliens. This is not to say that it took some crazy amount of technology to build the pyramids, folks. All that we are saying is that they have, and National Geographic has attempted it, Smithsonian has attempted it, all kinds of people have attempted to build a scale model of the Great Pyramid in a scale amount of time.
Right.
So that means, 1/3 size the Great Pyramid, an exact measurements, size, weight, size of blocks per weight, and 1/3 the amount of time, total scale.
Right.
We still cannot do it with modern machinery.
Yeah, we can't do it.
It's ridiculous.
We certainly can't do it the way Egyptologists say it was done all day long.
That's the main thing, is that it cannot be done with the ways that they say it is being done.
I don't know how they get away with it. I don't know.
And that's why, to me, your lock method seems to make the most common sense as far as people that were already engineering the river.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I do.
As a culture that was already living on the river, using it as a means of trade, using it as a means of transport from multi-ton blocks, why the heck would you take it off the river when you can just dam it up and flood this area and contain it?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah,
and just skip it right over there and drop it into the water and then paddle off. You know?
People that actually just watch my video series, many people say, that's compelling.
Yeah.
And people that work in shipyards or car mechanics or people that actually do something, build houses, they look at that and they say, wow, that makes sense. Truck drivers who move 70-ton payloads, they say, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But then Egyptologists, oh, no.
I only move equipment across hotels. And you know what makes sense to me? Why would you take it off the wheels? It's on wheels. Why would you take the box off the wheels and then push the thing?
Yeah, well, I appreciate open-minded people like you, but it's been a battle getting the word out. But I know. It all takes time.
And I have appreciated our connection over the last couple years, Stephen, because once again, you were one of the many people that when I started learning esoteric things and started really opening my mind to this kind of study and these kinds of topics, the concept of this stuff was some of the first things that I heard on Coast to Coast AM. And to have you on my show means a lot to me, and to talk about this topic and to open up and broach this conversation really really means a lot to me.
I get people all the time that are receptive to it, and that means a lot. It's interesting. There were on the Piltdown skull, there were file marks. Okay, the file marks are still there, but the leading anthropologists, that's the missing link right there. We're the experts and that's it. And they all wrote their doctoral thesis on it.
Yep.
And it was 40 years before the science of anthropology acknowledged that the Piltdown skull was a forgery. And the reason why it took 40 years, it took that whole one generation of anthropologists to die off. And the next generation that came up, they all already realized it was a forgery, but neither generation changed their minds. So it takes time for a new idea to get out there, but people like you are helping immensely.
Well, and I appreciate that because for me, it's all about the conversation, man. I come from, I guess, that school of thought of I wish more schools just had debate, where kids could just learn to literally go up and pull a topic out of a hat, and it doesn't matter if you believe it or not. But you gotta be able to think your way through three defenses of that form of thought.
Yeah, people don't even know what you're talking about now.
No. Now they just assume the fact that because you're willing to parry and thrust within a conversation that you're trying to convince them of a paradigm, and if you don't, that you're going to be very disappointed in them as a human being.
Or they think that they are going to be triggered, and you can't even talk about it.
And that's the opposite swing. That's the opposite swing. And I hate seeing that either way, because I am truly a man of 1,000 shades of gray. You call it black and white TV, watch a black and white TV, Yeah. No. If it was black and white, you would see very little. It's the 1,000 shades of gray in between the black and white that make the image.
And it's very crisp. I like black and white.
Oh, absolutely.
Some of it.
The definition was beautiful. Now, let's get into something real quick, because we've got you for a few more minutes, and I don't want to keep you too long, because I know you're crazy busy with stuff, running the foundation, things like that. But I want to bring up your Facebook community here, because you've got this amazing tour coming up, and I want to spend the last few minutes talking about the upcoming 13-day Enchanted Egypt tour. Because I'm a little upset that I'm just finding out about this, quite honestly, because, buddy, I'd have found a way to go to that.
Well, I'm co-leading a tour to Egypt with another researcher and business person. She publishes a magazine. She has workshops, Ramona Miles, and she's a super good lady. She's in Egypt right now. But there's still a few openings on this 20-day tour. I just talked to her earlier today, and it will be a lot of fun. We're going to go to certainly the Great Pyramid, but the Cairo Tower, the Colossi of Mammon, those great big statues. We're going to do that, and the Valley of the Kings, of course. But we want to connect with not just ancient Egypt, but some modern Egypt as well. So we're going to do a lot of fun things. It won't be a bunch of lectures or anything like that, but all the food will be provided, and the transportation and everything. And there'll be a 5-day cruise on the Nile on one of them deluxe larger boats that they have.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah, the
and it's just going to be a trip of a lifetime. Go to the everywhere, and it's just exciting. And the website for that, which you had on there, is lifealongthenile.com.
Yep. Now, just out of curiosity, because I know you may not know right off the top of your head or anything, but what's the average per person on that coming from the U.S.?
The cost, I don't know exactly. I don't have that in front of me, but it's about $5,000 per person. It sounds like a lot, but it's cheaper than a 2-week tour on a cruise ship, depending on, what you get. But so it's not that expensive.
No, especially not to travel to the area. And I assume that would include your visas and all that kind of stuff.
Most of that. It doesn't include the airfare to get there.
Sure.
But once you're there, they treat you like a king, and everything is taken care of, transportation, guides.
For 13 days?
That's insane. 13 days.
man.
The starting the 20th of
October.
It's coming right up,
man.
But life is life, and time gets away from you. So you got to reach for the brass ring. I'm a fiscal conservative. I'm pretty cheap, but this is something I would go in debt for.
Yeah,
this type of a thing.
Yeah, I'm kind of at the point right now, Stephen, where there's a couple of things that I can do here and there that are mutually beneficial in the world. Kind of like me sponsoring the events like IANS and IRVA and MUFON and things like that. They are mutually beneficial. They are things and entities that their research I have supported and lauded for the last better than a decade of my life, all of them,
right on.
So to begin with, it was one of those like, man, whenever I can afford to get a MUFON membership, I'm totally doing that. Because that's what pays for the research, So yeah, right when I could go out and become a lifetime member, I went out and became a lifetime member. When I rebranded this show, I had the conversation with my wife because I'd already had the conversation with Dudes and Beer. We'd gone out and done like live at Mecum auto auctions and stuff like that, and I was like, I want to do that, but at these paranormal things. And then it dawned on me, no, what I need to do is sponsor these paranormal things.
Right. Yeah.
I need to go out and sponsor these events to make sure that they are still happening. And then go out and cover them and give them the coverage that they need the way that they need it, and getting content out there and socially blasting them out and giving them traffic that they normally wouldn't get. And exposing that's a lot of these older organizations. Like, you go to a lot of them and there are honestly not a lot of under 55, under 60 people.
I know what you mean.
And it's really hard to continue the research if you don't have a crowd of mid-20s, early 30s in there.
Right on
a regular
basis.
True.
That's true for every organization.
Well, for any research, period.
Yeah, anything. Churches and that type of thing.
Yeah.
So it's important. But, there's nothing like, everyone's read about the pyramids and the ancient temples, but just going there and seeing them is, a whole different world.
Well,
and I've never heard anybody on Earth say, I regret that I went on a tour to Egypt. I've never heard that.
Yeah, man, I wish I wouldn't have spent all that money to go to Egypt.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a lot, but it's all the meals, the transportation, there's tour guides, and activities planned. There's, I think, a train ride from somewhere to Luxor to somewhere else.
Wow.
So wouldn't that be fun? I like trains too.
Oh, yeah. That'd be dope, man. A train through the desert? Like,
oh, yeah, right.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. I would
it's
possibly
Indiana Jones
swimming in the Nile. We might do that as well. But nice. I mean, it's going to be a trip of a lifetime. You get a lot of information from myself and from Ramona Miles. She's, a wealth of information. So, yeah, the Enchanted Nile Cruise and Tour. So you just go to her link and sign up and pay money, and do it.
Well, we will definitely be helping promote this for you. I will help promote it to our groups, our page, all that kind of stuff. I'm all about helping out any way that I can. And once again, like I've told you before, the way I can help you out is having you on again and again and again.
Right on.
To talk about the research and get it out there to more people,
Yeah, they say travel is always expensive and always worth it.
That's right.
So,
well, speaking of getting involved, before we let you go real quick, because we, of course, had the time for shameless self-promotion for the upcoming trip, let's talk about the shameless self-promotion of how people can get involved with the Pharaoh's Pump Foundation. What can they do to help you get the message out? Is there a thing like, hey, donate like, $100 and we can donate 10 DVDs to local high schools, stuff like that to put into their history classrooms, as an alternative theory.
Yeah, I appreciate
things
that.
like that. How do you have programs like that? Do you need help starting a program like that?
Yeah, not like that. What we're doing is we've had a few people ask for some donations for their local libraries if they don't have our DVDs, that type of thing. The books are available in softcover, but they're also available as Kindle ebooks. So that's been real popular, and they're set up so if you have Amazon Prime, you can get them for free. So, So what else can I do? To spread the word. A lot of people don't read books, so that makes them at a disadvantage as researchers. So we're doing that, but people can just say, if they're talking to somebody, say, "Hey, there's a guy that thinks the Great Pyramid is a water pump," or they can put a link from their website or Facebook page to thepump.org. They can pray for us, or they can get a hold of us and maybe donate some materials. We're trying to redevelop this ancient technology or that type of thing.
Absolutely.
The revolution isn't going to be out in the street. It's going to be people reading books.
Yep. It will not be televised either, according to the song, my friend.
That's what they say. So that's how they can help us. But I just ask people, have an open mind.
That's right.
And, learn about it before you pass judgment. There was a guy who found out that bread mold could help sick people become well. That was Alexander Fleming, and he developed penicillin.
Yeah.
But that was a hard thing to get people to accept.
Well, because we had thousands of years of teachings of the four humors that made you sick, whether it was phlegm or red bile or black bile or yellow bile or,
Right on.
What was it that you were sick with? One of these four humors, and depending on the mixture of the four humors is what herbs you took or whatever, and then, we found out about bacterium and little critters that live in us and on food that we eat. And
all revolutionary ideas face huge opposition.
Well,
so it's,
the one thing that we remind people of all the time on here, I know that you were all about the Orion correlation theory and how it is. I love your memes about the Orion correlation theory. By the way, I bust out every time I see one. But never forget, one of the longest running conspiracy theories ever was that the world was flat. That is not a recent thing, folks. Until 1500, when Magellan went up around the world with a crew of people who thought he was maybe crazy, but maybe not that crazy. There were people that theorized it. Of course, the ancient Greeks did all kinds of stuff, Sumerians. But everybody else was like, nope, Earth's flat. You go over there where that little thin edge is between the ocean and the sun, you will die. Like, you will fly off. No idea, dude, but ain't nobody ever come back.
Well.
And now look at us 500 years later. Now to think that the Earth is flat, or even to hypothesize that the Earth is flat, is witchery. You would have been
a pyramid shape.
Dude, you would have been driven out of your town. Me as a redhead in the 1500s would have had better luck than you saying that the Earth was round.
Right. Well, just one last thing. Before the Orion correlation theory, there was the idea that the Great Pyramid had a lot of correlations between it and the Bible.
That's right.
And that went on for quite a while.
Yeah.
And those correlations were developed the same way that the Orion correlation theory developed its, with a lot of poor research methods. But that's for another show.
Absolutely. Once again, thank you so much, as always, for coming on. Stephen Myers, ladies and gentlemen, author of The Great Pyramid Prosperity Machine, Why the Great Pyramid Was Built, as well as Lost Technologies of the Great Pyramid. Stephen, I'm going to go ahead and let you go while we close out this segment and rack up our second pre-recorded part. But thank you so much, as always, my friend. Greatly appreciate it. Keep up the good work out there.
Thank you, Chris. You're awesome.
Thank you. Take care, man. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
All right. Man, I love that conversation anytime I get to have it, ladies and gentlemen. And make sure to stop on by the pump.org. Pump.org is where you can find out everything about the Pharaoh's Pump Foundation. That is where you can find out about the continuing work of Stephen Myers. Make sure to stop on by Facebook, grab hold of his community over there. Just look up Stephen Myers and you will see a picture of him right there next to the Sphinx with his books on top, everything else. And that is where you can find the Enchanted Egypt tour as well. While you're online, make sure to check out IANS, the International Association for Near-Death Studies. We just sponsored that conference in Salt Lake City. Next Tuesday, we will be bringing you some great coverage from that right here on our website as well as on our social media. Make sure to stop on by CuriousRealm.com for all the episodes, everything else. We will be going to commercial break. After that, we will be having a conversation with our good friend Keith Seland, who is the author of the Humaniverse Guide to First Contact with E.T. We met him when we sponsored the MUFON conference in Colorado, had him on for an episode, had just a couple of days, a great side conversation with him. Found out he was doing some petroglyph studies. So we are going to be talking with him about the world of petroglyphs in the ancient world, the possibility of language being encoded into petroglyphs. More about that and so much more right after this, folks. With the rise in attention to the health benefits of cannabis and cannabinoids, including CBD, True Hemp Science has become one of the premier providers of full-spectrum CBD and CBD-related products. Using a proprietary spigeric process, True Hemp Science extracts maximum benefit from the whole hemp plant. Buds, leaves, stems, seeds, even roots. Every part of the plant is used and then reused to formulate a rich, complex profile of CBD, CBD derivatives, and terpenes guaranteed to provide the relief and benefits you need daily. Visit TrueHempScience.com to experience the best CBD oils, edibles, and topicals on the market today. And use code CURIOUS7 to save 7% off your entire purchase of $50 or more and get 2 25 milligram CBD cookies or brownies free. That website again is TrueHempScience.com and the code is CURIOUS7. The Curious Realm Podcast is your source for the latest and greatest news and events in the world of the paranormal, esoteric, and forbidden knowledge. And there's no better way to spark the conversation than with items from the Curious Realm store. Choose from fan favorites like hoodies, mouse pads, coffee mugs, and more. Buy books and items from your favorite Curious Realm guests. Get your hands on the latest gear for paranormal investigations and experiments we discuss on the show. Open your web browser and stop on by the Curious Realm store at CuriousRealm.com/store to buy the latest Curious Realm wear and out-of-this-world gifts for yourself, your family, or a mind that you want to open. That website again is CuriousRealm.com/store. Have you considered starting a podcast? Looking for a way to make your business a voice of authority in an industry? Then Podcast Cadet is the solution for you. Whether starting a podcast for yourself, your brand, business, school, church, or just plain fun, Podcast Cadet is here to help you navigate the waters of the podcast industry. Specializing in one-on-one consultation and training with industry professionals in fields ranging from podcast technology and editing to distribution, monetization, and even social media strategies. Podcast Cadet tailors their services to the specific needs of you and your podcast. Do you already have a podcast and trying to find ways to engage and grow your audience? Sign up for your Podcast Cadet audit today and let us help you explore new and exciting ways to leverage your content and elevate your podcast brand to whole new levels. From consultational workshops to affordable podcast production and maintenance packages, Podcast Cadet is your one-stop shop for everything podcast related on the internet. Visit podcastcadet.com today to sign up for your consultation or training and use code CURIOUS20 to save 20% off your entire purchase. That website again is podcastcadet.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome back from our commercial break. Thank you so much to our amazing sponsors, especially to our good friend and guest, Dr. Kimberly McGeorge. She is the owner of SecretToEverything.com. Secret to Everything is your number one source for alternative health, frequency healing, and consciousness expansion exercises. Make sure to stop on by. Check her stuff out. She did an oral reading on me, an aura reading that was probably the closest anybody's ever gotten to reading me on a cold read ever by just using her electronic means. It was pretty incredible. Stop on by, check her out, folks. While you're there, our good friends, WebWorks Wireless, as always, thank you guys. It is because of WebWorks Wireless that we are able to bring you our live internet streams every week to our website, as well as from on-location places like the amazing MUFON conference that we were just at in Denver, Colorado. In addition to that, we were also just at the International Association for Near-Death Studies. That footage, folks, will be coming next week. Is actually a fully pre-recorded episode, just so you know. I am in Vegas for work, doing what I do as an AV engineer, with some good friends out there. Much love to you, FMP. And while we're out there, we're going to be bringing you about a three and a half hour episode of footage from the International Association of Near-Death Studies conference that just happened, that we got to sponsor with the Bigelow Institute for Consciousness Studies. I think we were a couple of the only sponsors of that show. It was fantastic. Some great interviews. The altitude really kicked me in the butt hilariously because, like, I've been to 11,000 feet and only thing that happened was I hurt my back on the way down. But man, I went to 4,000 feet in Salt Lake and for 3 days just was destroyed, but managed to get 3 hours of great interviews, make some really good connections, some really good friends. So that is what will be coming to you next week, everybody. During this segment, we are glad to welcome our friend, Keith Seland. He is the author of the Humaniverse Guide, the first, to first contact with ETs, pardon me. We had a chance to talk with him at the MUFON conference, and he is actively out on the road right now, doing research into some new stuff with petroglyphs, which I am just fascinated by personally. So welcome back to the show, Keith. How are you doing?
Hi, good, Chris. Thank you for having me. Doing good. Awesome. It's going to be getaway day today. My current trek is winding down, so I'll be heading out of Arizona now and nice. Collecting up all my data and getting it onto a screen and starting to do some analysis work.
All right. Well, and let's get into some of that analysis work, because the pictures that you have been posting, I'm going to go and bring those up on screen right now, from Facebook, are absolutely gorgeous. Beautiful job. I don't know if you're just using your cell phone or an actual camera, but some really great, beautiful, intricate panels that you have documented here. What was it that brought you into wanting to study petroglyphs to begin with, Keith?
Yeah, the main focus of my study has to do with for lack of a better word, the star people, Kachinas, and Native Americans were very, very spiritual, very cosmic-centric consciousness, will I say. And so my thrust into this is to try and twofold. One is to add to the catalog of language, so to speak. I'll mention more on that in just a second. And the second, the second point is to kind of bring to more to the public light some of the stories and experiences that our Native American ancestors may have had with cosmic connections, also known as extraterrestrial intelligences. They were very Native America, they were very spiritual, and they were polytheistic. In other words, they had a lot of gods that they worshipped and prayed to, such as what we do today in a monotheistic sense. So they were very polytheistic and very, very much into it. So that's my second purpose, so to speak, for getting into the petroglyph research. But circling back to the first one real quick, in public consciousness today, it's a misnomer and a mistake that this whole subject is referred to as rock art. Nothing could be further from the truth, Chris. In fact, our ancestors, this was a form of communication. We're in an area right now that we're trying to discover a Rosetta Stone, so to speak, in being able to decipher petroglyphs, pictographs, and the like. And add to an already existing but very deficient catalog of knowledge into the semiotic symbolism and whatnot. So that's again, my hope is another hope is to be able to add to the knowledge base of the deciphering of universal symbols and whatnot, to be able to help decipher more of the stories that our ancients were telling as writing, as communication, not as art. They never intended it as art. So it's my advocacy too is to try and bring to our generation and society that, again, this is rock writing, this is communication. They had stories to tell, yes, very important ones, and the connection with the cosmic connection and ET.
Well, and I think that is a very important and cogent point to bring up whenever you're talking about rock panels, because, of course, there are cave drawings, cave paintings, things like that. Art. They're there to depict a moment, whether it be a hunt, what have you. They're to celebrate a moment, even. But when you're looking at the petroglyphs, when you're looking at number one, the term glyph to begin with, like let's just get into the root of the word petroglyph. Like a glyph is used in language. It is used to represent words or phrases, things like that. Hieroglyph, for example, folks. So to diminutize petroglyphs to the point that they are just art, I think is a mistake, because that would be the same mistake that we did with Egyptian writing, hieroglyphs, for years upon years. The same thing that we did with cuneiform, until, we found literally the Rosetta Stone, like you said, that brought all of these things together, that showed us cuneiform and Greek and hieroglyphics, and showed that this is what sea looked like, And it's interesting because when you look at petroglyphs from around the globe, be they from South America, be they from North America, be they from the European continent, the African continent, even the Middle East, there is one image in specific that is so universal. The spiral is present in all petroglyphs. And anywhere that you find petroglyphs, you will find a spiral. And it's really, really interesting that all of these continents where you find petroglyphs, all of them use a spiral in some way, shape, or form, and represent that. Why do you think that is, Keith? Do you think that might be kind of one of those Rosetta Stone moments where at least here is a character within this glyph language that is similar amongst all of them?
Yes, Chris, that brings up a good point about the nature of symbolism and how these symbols were used by our ancients, not only in North America, but like you described, all around the world. In that, in the stories that they tell on the cave writings, petroglyphs, pictographs, panels, and whatnot, a particular symbol, one of the dynamics of this subject is that a particular symbol doesn't necessarily mean the same thing universally 100% of the time. What I mean by that is that,
sure.
And this brings in one of the very most basic but yet most complex aspects of studying glyphs to be able to decipher, decode, and cryptanalysis and whatnot, is that you have to immerse yourself into the culture of the creators of the works back at that time. And second, you have to find and discover the context of within the particular story that they're saying. So let's get into the spirals a little bit. In the context of the story, again, a spiral can mean different things to the ancient Celtics. They were very, I think, among the more elaborate users of the spiral symbol, and some other Eastern cultures also attributed this meaning of potential friendship and whatnot to the uses. But again, this is specific, and this is a general convention. You have to understand and be aware of the context of the story that symbol lies within. Now, for Native America, which is my current research topic, in that spirals can mean attributions to friendship. They can also be depictions of various aspects of what are called shields. And what a shield is in Native America is it would identify a particular tribe or a clan or whatnot. And a lot of these glyphs, the shield symbol would be worn often, not always, but often as an identifier on a warrior. He would be wearing a shield, exactly like the ancient Romans would do with the shields that they'd hold, or the ancient Greeks, or they would hold in their hands. So these shields were depicted and you can identify that particular as a warrior in the war story that's being told on that particular panel. So again, there's the context of the panel and one of the different meanings. Another meaning for a spiral has to do with directional aspects. Panels were used in communication to describe not everyday life, but big events such as, you had mentioned this, the Great Hunt, or a battle with a neighboring tribe, or a spiritual story,
or solstice, or comets,
yes,
things like that.
Very cosmologically, spiritually, and extraterrestrially centered. Other aspects. The spiral was also used as a three-dimensional representation of a two-dimensional easel. Now, this is, hopefully I can describe this imagery audially. I know I don't have videos to help me out, but when you take a spiral, again, it will depict a third dimension on a two-dimensional surface. For example, picture the spiral, and the one characteristic that has to be maintained is that as you're drawing the spiral, it is done clockwise. So you start and you draw clockwise. You draw the circle, whether it's drawing the spiral inwards or whether it's drawing it outwards. You have to start and use a clockwise rotation. So the 3D comes in to where, for example, if you start the spiral on the outside, draw around the circumference, and that'll be the biggest circumference. And as you work your way into the center, you're going clockwise into it. That's a representation, and this is a universal amongst Native America and other cultures, to describe something in that story that's going upwards, hence the three-dimensional aspect of it. So conversely, if you do the spiral starting the counterclockwise rotation from the inside, then you are depicting a three-dimensional aspect of something in that story going down. So that's just another example, and this is universal amongst Native America throughout, and it's temporal too. I mean, when you talk about this subject on the worldwide stage, cave writing, I have to keep stopping myself with wanting to say cave art or rock art.
It's hard,
and It is, Chris.
That is what we have been taught that it is for better than a century. You know, and it's hard to kind of get past that cultural memory that we have placed upon it.
And even the most dedicated archaeologists, anthropologists, they title their books rock art of native New Mexico or whatever.
Yeah.
But in the text, they will say that they admit that this wasn't art. It's communication. They're telling stories.
Yeah.
But so why do you name your books rock art? I mean, it's that conundrum.
Yeah. And it's one of those because I guess, it's hard to convey that overall message to the common understanding, you know, because sure, people understand like cave art, that kind of stuff. Once again, like we are very, very rigid in the way that we think about things sometimes, and we don't necessarily separate art and communication. I remember whenever we even talked, and this will actually be the first time that I mention this on air, just so you know. Whenever we talked, I was fascinated with the work that you were doing into rock art, because I myself am in the middle of interpreting these petroglyphs and these indigenous things from around the world in a musical way. I consider it the fact that perhaps some of these people that put forth this petroglyph language, things like that, were synesthetic. And maybe these, especially folks, if you're looking up there, the zigzag patterns that you see, the ripple looking patterns that you see, those of us who are audio engineers, those are sine waves. Those are sawtooth waves. Those are square waves. And what's really interesting is I have gone through and isolated some of these images and put them onto black and white, and then actively gone through and algorithmically turned that image into sound. And yeah, the things I'm getting are absolutely synthesizer-esque and sound like electronic music. It's crazy. And it's right there in the rocks all over the world. And the wildest sounding one, the spiral. Not even joking, man. I'll send you a track of one privately, because I'm still mixing things, but I'll send you a raw track of a spiral, and it'll trip you out, my friend.
And that can be another aspect to the study and the cryptology of glyph communication.
Oh, absolutely.
In that another purpose. In that, because they were all of our ancestors were very much more holistic and in a resonance.
Well, even if each shape on that petroglyph actually stood for a frequency, be it a note on a musical scale, that is music is the universal language, period. You could take a piece of music to somebody in Japan that does not speak French, and they can read it. So it makes perfect sense to me to, instead of going, hey, you know what we don't have yet? A musical staff. But what we do have is a beat per second.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know? And if you have that,
as part of the ceremony,
that is completely a square wave on a repeated scale. And that is the same thing that you see in these petroglyphs. Is the same kind of stuff where it's like, here is a frequency rate and an amplitude. Here's how loud to do the signal and how frequently to do it, be it in a chant form, whatever. So to me, it makes perfect sense as a ritualistic form of ceremony worldwide, world over, where somebody from like Africa could come to Central America and partake and still be able to be part of the ceremony, because I don't speak your language, but I know that. So I know your religious song.
And that begs the question, not too much peripheral in that, because these are universal concepts created supposedly independently of each other, in that where we are thinking today doesn't give credit to though our ancients to have been able to travel to each other.
Yep.
To be able to share these semiotics and things like that. Well, then how there's two basic ways that cultures from around the world would be able to universally adopt. One is that they visited each other. Two, that they had some kind of an interlocutor, so to speak, for contacting one and then contacting the other culture to give them that symbolism or whatever it turns out to be. And I mean, that's, beyond the glyphs and the semiotics, as we're finding more artifacts that have been shared throughout the world. For example, why in Peru should there be Egyptian type artifacts found or whatever, or the presence of pyramids all throughout the world? And now they're even saying in Antarctica, there's study that pyramids exist there. So, I mean, our ancients, did they contact each other, or did they have help?
Even to the point of fact that there have been traces of cocaine and nicotine found in Egyptian mummies. That stuff only grows in one place, Jack, and that is the Americas. So that in and of itself sets up the fact that they probably had trade and knew of each other, not just the fact of, hey, look at that building. We got one just like it.
Yeah, and I mean, you can even try and debunk that by saying, well, okay, for something in agriculture, something like a cocaine or a poppy or whatever. Well, 2,000 years ago, the climate may have been different and whatnot. Okay, that's possible, but is it likely to be? Yeah.
How many coca plants have you found kicking around? And how many nicotine plants? Because those are plants that, regardless of where they pop up, Indios tend to use. Those are an indigen. Now, granted, when they say cocaine, folks, what they're saying is coca, not cocaine like what we have nowadays, where we've gone through and chemically processed that out. Coca was regularly used by, I mean, good Lord, our vice president drank coca tea whenever he went to Peru and went to the top of Machu Picchu, I remember that when I was in high school, like, oh, he's drinking cocaine. It's like, no, it's coca. Like, yeah, it's a slight stimulant. It'll pick you up a little bit and it's going to help you breathe in the higher environment. But is it a habit forming thing like cocaine? No, not really. Not until you chemically process that. And that has been used by the indigenous people there for better than 1,000 years.
I wonder if you'd ever tried ayahuasca.
Yeah, right. Hey, Dan Quayle, I want you on the show. But in all sincerity, these are things that have carried across cultures, be it these indigens, ayahuasca, things like that. Even ibogaine is another one that's of African use, that's prevalent now, and that's another one where they were told by the gods what to do, and to see these petroglyphs, to see this literal language and diaries is really what it is. It is cultural diary on the walls of canyons, all over the world and in caves. And once again, different than cave art, because it doesn't just depict a moment. It depicts belief system. It depicts, cultural integrity. It depicts cultural tradition. So it's not like typical cave art where it's like, here's my hand on the wall, things like that.
Yeah. And the temporal nature of, especially, the more modern, as opposed to cave art, the more modern, pictographs, which are painted on, generally, but for anyone's information. And petroglyphs were carved or pecked. The temporal aspects come in also in that you have to realize as you enter into this type of research or analysis is that their parchment, aka the panel, so to speak, they were limited in nature. Now, especially for the geographic regions where tribes settled and stayed for many, many, many generations, they ran out of space eventually. Sometimes you're going to find often that new glyphs were put on over old ones. For example, so many examples. Some of my travels this year, earlier I was in Utah. And in the San Rafael Swell, Buckhorn Wash is an example. Another example, courthouse rock, not so much courthouse, newspaper rock near Moab, but also two other areas which our audience may be a little more familiar with: Sago Canyon, just outside of Moab, and in near Canyonlands, Horseshoe Canyon, home of the Great Gallery and the ghost panels and the alcoves and whatnot. Close inspection, you'll find that the panel's existence covers many hundreds or even thousands of years, in that they just ran out of space, the different generations, so they had to carve, peck, or paint over them, and that creates a problem for analysis and decoding and whatnot, in that you have to try and separate stories from older stories, and visually it gets difficult. I mean, there are some improvements in image enhancement and some other dating techniques as opposed to the carbon dating for organic materials. There are now techniques that are able to be used, especially for pictographs, for determining different ages of different pigments, and for the petroglyphs, because they're carved on, and throughout time patinas form over the pecked out glyphs. So there's now the use of some techniques to be able to improve the accuracy of dating of these particular things, which helps to keep one story separate from another and helps in the analysis and whatnot. But the time issue is again another conundrum, another aspect, a constraint for trying to decipher, decode, and add to the what I call the catalog of semiotics for not only Native American but worldwide human rock writing in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's I think that the work that you are doing out there right now to just index all of these together to begin with is incredible, Keith. And thank you for doing that. That is a Herculean effort to begin with, because there's a lot of things that are out there for certain on petroglyphs, quite a few things, but to go out and see them and chronicle them and do that is fantastic. What has been probably the most eye-opening thing during your excursion recently? Because it's only been about a month and a half since we met, and you started this expedition. What has been the most eye-opening experience for you so far out there on the trail?
Yeah, Chris, I've been doing the research, boots on the ground for a couple of years now. I got started with that. I knew a Zuni elder, Clifford Mahudi, and I had met him years ago on the ufology conference circuit, and he's done some videos and presentations, things like that. He got me interested, fascinated in the community, but also too he highlighted to me of the great deficiency of, again, on the dimension, I'll put it this way, on the dimension of where we are in discovering the Rosetta Stone, so to speak, we're closer to the unknown than we are to actually compiling the Rosetta Stone. In other words, AKA, there's a lot more work to be done. And that's usually a motivation for any researcher to get into a particular topic. So, unfortunately, we lost Clifford Mahudi about a year ago. Yeah. So his legacy, and again, I try to promote his legacy, where I can and whatnot. But I've been the boots on the ground for the last couple of years now. One really intriguing recent discovery, and I have not even had time to do any research on this and whatnot, is that I was just actually last week in the Pulaski monument area just outside of Sedona, where there was a pueblo that was built by a combination of peoples back in the early 1000s. The contributors to this were the Sinagua, indigenous Sinagua, Zuni, Hopi, Yavapai, amongst others. And this pueblo had a couple of hundred rooms to it. It perched on top. I've got a couple of photos and whatnot I'm going to put up in the very, very near future. Yes. When I boots on the ground back home, so to speak. I'm traveling right now, so but I'll put those up. But inside one of the rooms, again, this is multi-level pueblo. They had, I think, 5 stories on it. As you walk inside one of the rooms, which led to a stairway up to an upper level, there were support posts. And the technology there that they used was just like today to support the roof level, the roof floor, so to speak. They would use posts throughout the room, wooden posts, as support structures. And on 2-3 of those posts were carved many symbols, many figures, many designs. They were just carved in, not painted on or whatever, but I would imagine anybody could take a very sharp implement, again, being in the context of back in the late 700s, 800s, 900s, 1100, 1300, 1400. They used their tools, sharpened arrowheads, things like that. They're carvings all up and down these 3 poles. And when I walked in, you walk through the threshold and you see this in the sun, one of them in the sunlight. And I just stopped dead there and I just started shooting photos away. And a couple other people came up and they didn't even see any of them. They just went up to the stairs and went up to the roof or whatever. So when they came back down, I was still there, studying and shooting photos and that, collecting data. And that was when we started a conversation, and the 3 of them said, gosh, we didn't even notice this. We saw you, but we just walked right by him and everything. So I had not seen or come across glyphs or symbolism done on support pole structures, things like that. I mean, with panels, they're obviously done on walls, and they're either outside or they're inside of a natural rock cave, so to speak, or whatever. Sure. So you would have to go into the living structures to be able to discover something like this, but that's exactly what happened. So, yeah. And again, twofold purpose. One, you study the Pueblo to gain knowledge on the culture. In other words, going back to that prerequisite to be able to help interpret, you have to immerse yourself in the culture, and it's very difficult. I'll give our audience an example. Let's say a thought experiment. Let's say we're going 500 years from now, and one of our descendants finds artifacts from our time, and they find this paper, which is the panels that we use today, paper or a book or something like that. And they see on that, the letters OMG, BRB, or pictures of emojis. Mm-hmm. They're going to be wondering what the H were these people, so there's the thought experiment. We have that same constraint. Yeah. To be able to decipher our culture. So that's why that is so very basic. There's context of the culture that you're in. Yeah. And that can be attributed to same mind process, interpretations of, let's say the Bible or other historical things. So there's that context, and then there's the context of the use of the symbolisms within the story itself. And without those, I suppose a person could just look at it as rock art.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just it. And kind of I guess the sad thing and the short-sighted thing, because we really tend to, we just got done talking with Stephen Myers, in our live segment about, different concepts of how the pyramid was built, and the fact that they may have used an actual water lock system to flood the Giza plateau up to a retention wall. Why would you track that stuff all the way down the Nile from the quarry just to drag it across a bunch of timbers? When if you're already mastered the river, you could just dam up part of it and flood it.
Yep.
It makes a whole lot more engineering sense to just barge the pieces right into place and drop them. You know,
and let the physics take care of itself.
Let the physics handle itself. You know.
Yep.
Than it does.
Absolutely.
So interesting things, but we really do have to be open-minded enough to say, okay, maybe not built by aliens. Okay, maybe ancient people were smarter than we think. Maybe ancient people were actually way more ingenious than we think. And we have lost a part of that. You know?
Absolutely.
And that's not to say that they did not have some grasp of some incredible technology. Because even once again, if you're looking at the petroglyphs and some of the symbols in them from the way that I am, where even if they are a geologic or a carved representation of sound, so that you could come and take part in my ceremony and I can go to your place and take part in yours. Even if that's it, that's monumental and just so far reaching as far as forward thinking for what we consider to be an ancient people, as far as a means of communication.
And Chris, yes, that's absolutely another potential story that they could have communicated amongst these panel writings. Absolutely. I mean, again, we know the great hunts. We know the wars. We know the wars with the white man, with other neighboring tribes. We know of fertility marches, the Kokopellis and whatnot. That was again, life events, very important ones. The spiritual ones, which can very well include, here's the program for our ceremony, and here's some of the music that you're actually going to, participate in and whatnot.
Absolutely, and quite literally, the fact of doesn't matter what tribe you go to across any continent, these are the rights that they have. They have a fertility right. They have a right to spring. They have a right at fall harvest time and at planting season. These are common practices the world over by all religions and cultures.
Oh, absolutely. They had, and like you said, universal humankind, the entire planet were very much more holistic. They were very much more in resonance, culturally, spiritually, and they looked on the heavens, as did our ancient Greeks, Romans, quote, other civilizations, our Eastern Hindus and whatnot. The sky, the heavens, the seasons were existential to them. Yeah. And they then designed their worships and their ceremonies, their rituals, their rites, their God adorations based on these. And it shows up very often in the symbolism. And they had music also.
Absolutely. It was an integral part of daily life. You had songs that you sang while you sat and prepared food. You had songs that you sang on the way to hunt. You had songs that you sang as a community while you prepared your food, all kinds of things. It was a part of daily life, much less a part of meditative and religious life. So, and once again, I was just having the conversation this last week with somebody about the fact that as opposed to where we were, even in, and granted, you've got a few years on me, but not that many. So I will say our grandparents' age, the time of the Victory Garden, you know, where everybody, like, I don't know anybody in my family that's not older than my mom that doesn't still have a garden, like an operating garden, where they go, like, people come to their house, they will leave with a bag of food. Like, here's some veggies. I got more than I can eat. Take them with you. And there was a connection to the earth. There was a knowing, even, you know, my Cajun family who hunted, trapped, fished for a living on rivers and stuff like that. You knew the cycles. You knew when the insects were coming out. You matched the hatch when you were fishing, and you put that kind of insect that was busy budding on the tree limbs on your hook, you know? There was a connection that we had all of 100 years ago that we really eroded the wiring of. That we no longer have, and it has truly created literally just an imbalance amongst humanity, much less an imbalance between humanity and Earth. That's just me.
Yeah. No. You can. It shows up in the glyphs. I mean, just take the Kokopelli. I mean, our ancients were very celebratory and had a very, very intricate connection with, again, spiritual and rituals and rites. And take, for example, the Kokopelli. He was a flute player and danced. And I mean, what as the god of fertility,
the mischief maker,
is more existential than that process and the celebration of.
Absolutely.
So what you've just been saying shows up.
Yeah. And once again, it's beautiful representations of culture, of so many more things than just a brushstroke or just, you know, carving on something like you're whittling. It is really, I'm fascinated by the work that you are doing, Keith, and thank you so much for taking it on in the aspect that you are, where you are literally considering this a form of language and trying to decode what the commonality is. And I, as you, believe that it's there. I truly do. I see so little separation between the common images and petroglyphs across the globe.
Yep, and as we come and this is what's exciting is not even so much what we've already discovered and what we know. It's what still lays out there yet to discover, yet to come to know, and that's where the motivation, you know, for myself. I would like to attribute and do some thanking. This gentleman lived in the 20th century. He was an archaeologist, but also a cryptologist. His name was Levan Martineau. He was not academically trained as an archaeologist. In other words, he didn't have a PhD. So he's amongst that the archaeo and anthro communities. He's not officially recognized much. That has to do with
quote unquote authority figure.
Yeah, that has to do with the biases of those communities involved. But he was in the 20th century, he was actually he was adopted by a Paiute family. He grew up, served in World War II, trained as a cryptologist. So after the war, he started to look at the potentials for being able to decode petroglyphs with the use of cryptology. Now, that had never been done before or even thought about or speculated in the academic literature. So his works, he did write a famous book, The Rocks Begin to Talk. It was published
you had just gotten a copy of that.
Yeah. And that was very significant as a launching point, you know, for anybody it's not written. It's not written for in a highbrow or in a very technical manner. I mean, anybody. If you're wanting to take a vacation to view some petroglyphs, you get a copy of that book or read some things up about it, and your impressions and your interpretation and analysis when you actually go up to those panels, in which to the general public, a lot of panels are available. A lot aren't, sure, but a lot are. So on your vacation, if you want to do that, that's going to enrich your understanding and your enjoyment so much more of those things. But again, very, very, he spent basically his whole career doing the cryptology analysis to be able to one, discover the symbols that relate to one story, sure, and two, be able to then decode what all of the symbols actually mean in the flow of the story that's actually being told.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, what an incredible story to be told. I am glad that you are taking up that work in a new aspect and really, really digging deep into this. I definitely want to talk to you off air about a couple things. But I know that we are coming close to the end of our time, things like that for today. But please let everybody know where they can get your copy, their copy of the Humaniverse Guide, where they can go to keep up with everything that is Keith Seland, where they can go to keep up with the research, your appearances, take any courses that you have, all that kind of good stuff, my man.
Yeah, Chris. Currently, I have 2 books are in print. They're both under the Humaniverse Guide. Actually, that's my trademark phrase, the Humaniverse Guide. I mean, to the point where I own the trademark on the phrase. So, the Humaniverse Guide. I have a third book that is they're doing the cover art. The title is going to be The Humaniverse Guide. Will E.T. Talk with Us? And again, that should be out in just a few weeks. It is that script has to do with my advocacy for a dedicated plan of action proactively that we must start planning for not only the SETI's, we've discovered a message type of a thing. I talk about the first contact, the globally acknowledged contact, when we meet formally, when we start a relationship. I advocate that we must start a proactive plan of action for so many reasons now. Don't wait to be reactive to when they're here and then we now what do we do?
Far
ET is
late.
Here. Yeah, right.
That's like trying to figure out what to do about an asteroid.
That's
really need to get that in pocket.
Yep, exactly. or COVID sprung upon us a couple of years ago, and it's still here, and we could have planned for it because we knew about it, and we didn't. And
it's kind of like a hypersonic missile. It's great to know about it before it gets there, but you probably won't.
But you're in deep doo-doo when it gets
there. You got a real big problem now.
Yep. So all 3 books will be available at all the booksellers, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple, Google, and whatnot. Like I said, will E.T. Talk with Us? It should be out in a few weeks.
I cannot wait to get that one. I have enjoyed the Humaniverse Guide. I have loved the private conversations that we've had, as well as our conversations on air, Keith. It has been more than a pleasure to spend time with you again. I cannot wait to have you on again and again and again to talk about your work, your research. I cannot recommend the Humaniverse enough. It really is, like Keith is saying, such an important topic for us to think about. Will E.T. talk to us? It's one of those like, hey, who do you talk to whenever you walk into the bar?
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
And unfortunately, we as human beings, Keith, tend to anthropomorphize everything, which for those of you that don't realize it, basically what my psychology professor meant by that in college whenever he said, Chris, you're anthropomorphizing these gorillas. It means that I am assuming what the gorillas mean by their actions, because these are what the actions would be if I did them because I'm a human. We can't do that, man. We cannot keep and continue putting on to extraterrestrial technology or extraterrestrial civilization or culture our cultural norm. We cannot. We cannot. Otherwise, we will not be ready.
Way too myopic.
And that's what this whole series is about. That's what I love about your work, Keith, because it is so important for us to just, man, we gotta blast open the peephole. We can't even pry it open anymore, Keith. It is beyond the point of prying. Like, we got to blast this thing open so that people have a much wider point of view and are willing to look at things from outside their own skin.
Yep.
Because
the platform that the skeptics are on right now, it's evolving. Yeah. And it's evolving away and towards acceptance. We are not alone as intelligent life, and tying in with the Petroglyph research, in that here's going to be more proof and examples that our ancients had contact and learned knowledge and obtained things from what they may have considered as gods. We now today can maybe attribute, well, some of these may have been extraterrestrial intelligences, whatnot. So, but it all means the same thing. Could have been somebody from Mesopotamia. Who knows? You know? That's right. Yeah. I mean, Viracocha looked pretty well like me. It's a tall, pale, reddish hair. A giant. But he could have also been one of the tall, red-headed giants from the American Southwest. Yep. And we can get into that another time. All kinds of things, Keith. That's what I love about you. We have a good time with conversation. It's fun. Awesome. And well, I want to thank you for your time. I know that you are once again boots on the ground, getting ready to head out of Arizona, all of that kind of good stuff. I have just been enthralled watching your videos and pictures come out from all the petroglyph research. And when I saw it, I was like, man, I got to have him on to talk about that. So thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it. I look forward to having you on again and again and again, my friend. Okay. Yeah, real quick, if anyone wants to catch up with me, my schedule, the weekend of October, I think it's 6th to the 8th, I'll be in Fort Lauderdale for the New Life conference. Oh, fantastic. Consciousness conference. Okay. That next weekend, I'll be back out here in Sedona for Contact 2022. That's that next weekend. Second weekend in November, I'll be at the Star Wars UFO conference in Laughlin, Nevada. Oh, wow. And fantastic. In February, the Los Angeles Conscious Life Expo. And for those of you that have not been there before, while I thoroughly enjoy all of my engagements, the LA Conscious Life is a must go. Wow. There's 25,000 people that go to this. I got to check that one out. Thank you for letting me know about that. And thank you for letting the audience know as well. I mean, I am all about promoting events like that, as you know, and about promoting people's work like yours. So once again, thank you so much for coming on. Anytime you have something to promote, please do consider the Curious Realm group yours. My audience is your audience, and whenever you have something to talk about, feel free to give a shout, and we'll have you on. Okay, sounds good. Well, say hi to Gort for me, too. Oh, absolutely. Hold the line real quick while we close things out, my friend. While you are online checking out all of the amazing work of the Humaniverse, your guide to first contact with ET, make sure to stop on by thehumaniverse.org as well as curiousrealm.com. Curiousrealm.com is where you can find all of the episodes. That's where you can find the videos of past episodes. You can go and click Curious Realm 24/7
and you can get a random episode of Curious Realm. So if you really don't know what you want to listen to, like, I don't know if I want to listen to like last week's yet, or I don't know if I want to listen to the first one and start at the beginning. CuriousRealm.com/24-7, and that will play a random episode of Curious Realm and queue up everything else random after that. If you are an experiencer or have an experience that you would like to share of the paranormal, abduction, if you were a targeted individual, if you have had a close encounter of any kind, stop on by CuriousRealm.com/story. You can share your account there. You can keep it anonymous if you like. We will not tell anybody, but we want to hear your story, and we want to share your story with our professionals and our researchers. So A, it furthers their research with accounts, and B, maybe you can get some answers. And I know it's hard to come forward, so that's why we have the anonymous there. If you are not an internet user and you are listening to this and would like to give us your account, make sure to call us on our listener hotline, 512-298-3913. That is 512-298-3913. That is our experiencer hotline. You can leave your experience there, and we will use your voicemail on air, and if needed, disguise your voice. Just let us know that you would like to be anonymous, and we will do so. So thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you so much for continuing to tune in. I cannot wait. Tune in next week for our mini-hour of coverage from the International Association of Near-Death Studies Conference in Salt Lake City, Utah. Until next time, everybody, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and remember, stay curious. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Curious Realm. Stay tuned for more guests, forbidden topics, and hidden truths. Download the official Curious Realm app and view the Knowledge Vault on our website, CuriousRealm.com. Follow us on social media by searching Curious Realm. Curious Realm is available on your favorite podcast services, as well as YouTube, Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV through the APR TV app, available on all app markets. Curious Realm is a proud member of the HC Universal Network family of podcasts. For more great content or to become a sponsor of Curious Realm or other podcasts, visit hcuniversalnetwork.com today. Thanks for listening. Stay curious. And remember, the other side is always watching.